Well, that's recording now, that's lovely. So these are Marlene's chestnut acrostics. Curling up inside your shell, hold on tight, don't let go. Ever waiting till you swell, staying snug until you grow. Then you're ready to be freed, now it's time to drop your seed. Under leaves a child's delight, the shiny nut peeping bright. That's lovely, isn't it? And this is another one with the same structure but a slightly different focus. Chestnut tree, I have a place to hide. Ever staying close to me, spread leafy fingers wide. Twisting through your branches old, new companions seen. Under you a carpet gold, though I stay evergreen. Brilliant. And then I've got a couple more. So there's one that I did, and then there's the one we did together as the online group. So shall I share those as well? So I had canopy spreader, hairy seed bearer, edible edifying soap provider, tent for forest sleepers, nutrient storer, umbrella of the woods, timber giver, twig tower, habitat, home. And then this was the one that we did together. Can I pick you, hold you in my hand, envelop you everlastingly? Shiny seed, symbol of life from sunrise to sunset. Travelling across the grass to you, nearer and nearer, until I am under your canopy, together at last. The willow ones, yeah. So there's two little willow ones. So there's one that I did and then one that we did together again. So I had wistful weeper, I look for sanctuary, lying here in silence, listening to the lapping of the water. And then the one we did together is wishing tree. Inside there are dreams living within our imagination. Let them free over and over when the water flows up like thought. And let's see. And then there's another one from Marlene, which is, I think this is really lovely, which is a silver birch acrostic. So I'll share this one. 7 sisters on the hill, in a ring, back to back. Living landmarks straight and still, viewed to keepers on the track. Ever forever show the way, round and round, but there they stay. Bricks and mortar on the land, in with planners, builders, and rearing giants cause turmoil. Concrete slabs where once was soil, houses to forever spoil. Wait. The spirit of a sister sees a little girl with love of trees, in a garden very near, a silver sapling, tended dear. Yeah. I think the last two ones that I had wrote about our experiences of tasting acorn coffee. So I did send these round to the online group. So for people who, I think we've all tried the acorn coffee, so whether this chimes with what other people thought. A rich brown powder, dark as henna, turns to pond sludge in the cup when mixed with boiling water. Caffeine-free and calcium-rich, brimming with magnesium. This drink smells of cinnamon biscuits and gingerbread parking on bonfire night. It savours sweetly of hot cross buns, the scent of the kitchen when making and baking. Some of us could sit here sniffing it all morning. But does it taste as good as it smells? The first sip is somewhat sour, fruity and citrusy, bitter spice and bitter fruit. This is a demanding drink. Add some milk and add some honey, and some may find it calming. Persevere and it may cure a migraine. Perhaps a useful substitute for coffee and cocodamol. If only the flavour was a little less alarming. There we go. And then the last one is raspberry leaf tea, which is I think we all had this one as well, didn't we? I think the raspberry leaf, or certainly had it in the online group. So, tea or tisane or herbal infusion, a source of debate and some confusion. Either way, this drink is sweet and sharp. It savours of pregnancy and ribena, meeting up with women's groups and waiting to give birth. The tales say that it softens the cervix, reduces cramps and strengthens the uterine wall. Mugwort may be better at inducing labour, but the hibiscus gives this a lovely red colour. And as for the flavour, at least it isn't acorn coffee. There we go, that's the poems that have come out. So thanks, Peter, that's brilliant. Brilliant. Right, that's recording, Peter. So whenever
Chestnut acrostic. Cleansing chestnut, catania sativa, hair wash for a forager, made under the canopy. Edible Roman deciduous introduction, sweethearted, bark smooth and groovy. That old Zeus's sacred Greek myth making tree. Necticums, catkin flowering for a flying pollinator. Under the weather, maybe blame blight or a gall wasp. They live for hundreds, thousands. That old chestnut.
That's recording now, so we just point it at my face. So this is called Niall and the Hag at the Well. And there's a little bit of a preamble which just says Niall is considered by many to be the first modern High King of Ireland. He was also called Niall of the Nine Hostages after the captives held by him from people and lands that he had conquered. Niall had many children, and recent research has suggested that a high percentage of people in Ireland are directly related to him. Tara, the seat of the Kings of Ireland, is an ancient sacred site near Skryne in County Meath. Excavations nearby have unearthed giant oak pillars that probably came from the mixed broadleaf woodland that used to surround the hill of Tara. Meath is now the least wooded county in Ireland because the agricultural land is of high quality. Can everyone hear all right with the... Yeah. Great. This story begins in a greenwood in the middle of the Kingdom of Ireland. It was an ancient place, thick with oak trees and ash, wych elm and birch, honeysuckle, green moss and rich earth. It had been woodland since anyone could remember, and it covered the valley of a place called Tara. Through the seasons of the year and the circles of the years all through time, that great woodland held all of the hopes and dreams and wishes and fears of the Kingdom of Ireland. In the very centre of the greenwood, in a glade they say was protected by the spirits, was a deep well of sacred, clear, cool water. It was around the year 400, just before Christianity became widespread in Ireland, and the High King of Ireland, Joachim MacMahon, held his court at the hill of Tara. He had 3 sons by his first wife, Mongfiend. She was strong of thigh, strong of fist, and strong of voice. Her sons were called Brian, Ailill, and Fiachra, and all were fine young men. But then the king took a second wife, Karen. She was beautiful, willowy, kind, and eager to please other people for the sake of her king. Mongfiend was jealous of her, and made no secret of the fact. She treated Karen as little more than a servant, and all the king did about it was to sit back and watch. When Karen was expecting her first child, Mongfiend ordered her to go to the woods and haul water from the sacred well in the centre of the greenwood, knowing what a heavy job it was. It was there in the centre of the greenwood, in the clearing by the sacred well, on soft green moss and brown earth, that Karen gave birth, before her time, to a tiny baby, a beautiful son. Karen was scared for his safety at court, scared that Mongfiend would find him and kill him. So she asked her friend, Torna the poet, to look after the little prince. Torna and his wife brought him up as their own. They called him Niall. Time went by and Niall grew up to be a strapping lad with a gleam of mischief in his eye. He was one of those young men who was sure he knew the right thread of every matter. Although many of Niall's ideas didn't match the harsh reality of the world, you couldn't help but love his wild eyes and his sincerity and his curiosity for life, and hope that he didn't trip up too many times on his way to wisdom. And he had a way with words. What a way with words! For how could he be otherwise brought up by the king's poet, travelling around ancient Ireland with all its magic and mysteries? In his 18th year, Niall vowed to return to the court at Tara, free his mother from the clutches of the king's first wife, and claim his birthright as the son of the High King. At midsummer, when the sun was high and the leaves were strong and hearty, and the acorns were beginning to form, Niall took his horse and his ash staff and his travelling cloak, and he made his way back to Tara. It was there that his quick wit and turn for poetry, and his complete innocence and naivety, made Niall very popular amongst the king's people. Now Mongfind had two people to be jealous about. She was determined that one of her own sons should be the next king of Ireland, and she forced the issue. Husband, are you scared of the future? Now is the time when you should name your successor, the one who is to come after you as the true High King, the real man. The High King was ready for such a challenge, and he had his own thoughts, but he wanted to set a test for his 4 sons. He asked Sithchan, the Druid, his right-hand man, to devise a context that would reveal the next true king. A test that would find the one who had the stoutest heart, the highest honour, and the strongest compassion. Sithchan stroked his long beard and pondered and sifted through all his wisdom. Then he went from the court and did the best thing he could think of. He invited the 4 brothers into his house at the edge of the greenwood. Then he went outside and went round the back of the house with a bow drill. He fitted the stick to the stout leather and started to drill. Tended the first sparks of fire with hay and dry leaves, and soon there was a merry fire that took to the house like a torch, with all the brothers still inside. Sithchan sat on the branch of a nearby tree and watched. Now this situation was not all that it seems. Sithchan was a blacksmith, and the test he had devised was to set fire to his smithy and see what each of the lads chose to rescue. He watched as Brian came out with a sword, Ailill with a bundle of wood, and Fiacre, thoughtfully, with a pail of beer. But Niall was nowhere to be seen. Sithchan and the 3 brothers watched with horror as the cottage continued to burn, and there was still no Niall. They waited and waited. At last a slightly charred Niall-shaped figure emerged from the cottage, hefting the anvil, the heart of the forge, from which it could be built new again. So it was Niall who was proclaimed the true leader. Mongfind was not happy, and she would not accept the Druid's decision. "That's ridiculous. Any fool would know that," she said. In my opinion, the sword is the most valuable." So Sithchan the Druid offered to set another task for the 4 brothers. This time he forged each of them a sword and sent them out hunting one by one into the great greenwood, to see what they could find. They each went off in different directions, but soon the tangles of the brambles and bracken at their feet, and the tiny criss-cross paths through the wood, meant that they all lost their way in the trees. Now whether it was the magic of the place, their thirst, or simply their terrible lack of direction, each one of the brothers was eventually drawn towards a clearing at the centre of the greenwood, and in the clearing there was a well. The first brother, Brian, got to the clearing, and he could see that standing by the well and blocking the way was a woman. To his eyes she was harsh and coarse, one of the commoners who didn't know any better in life. Her clothes were ill-fitting and patched, and hadn't been washed in a good long while. Her feet were bare and calloused, and birds had been nesting in her raven-coloured hair. She moved towards him, and he could see that under her dirt and filth, her green eyes were sparkling. She hissed, "A kiss, sir. A kiss for some water." Her breath was so foul that he nearly lost his balance. "Ugh, no, madam. I can think of nothing worse," said Brian. And he went on his way, her laughter ringing in his ears as he went. The same happened to the second brother, Ailill, and he beat a hasty retreat from the clearing as soon as he was challenged by the hag. By the time the third brother, Fiacre, had found the clearing and the well, he was thirsty. There, barring his way, was a woman. At least he thought it was a woman. Or was it a very large crow? Her eyes were a little too piercing. Her clothes were black, her gaze was hooked and hungry. A warrior should not get too close to such a spirit, but to turn away would be to show fear, and that he would never do. "A kiss, sir," she croaked. "Why, of course, madam," he said, closing his eyes and giving her the slightest dainty peck on the cheek, and then waiting expectantly. "Ha! You think that's enough?" she spat. She stepped aside and Fiacre strode past, only to find himself at the other side of the clearing, behind where they had been standing. He walked towards the centre again, only to find himself once again in a different place. The crow woman cackled and it echoed round the trees. Fiacre reflected that he had done his part, and maybe wasted enough of his royal time there. And he retreated into the trees, in search of a more generous welcome, fit for a prince of the realm. And finally here was Niall, striding through the forest, cutting the woodbine and the ivy with his sword, slashing this way and that, completely determined, but without the foggiest clue of what he was looking for, let alone how to find it. And here was Niall, standing at the edge of the glade and taking in the whole scene, quick as a flash. Clearing, sunlight, well of water. As Niall scanned the scene, he felt a strange flutter of recognition across his skin and his soul at this precious place. Somehow he knew it. Had he been here before? He was alone in the clearing. There was a well and he was thirsty. He stepped forward, licking his lips. Then, from the shadows, seen and yet unseen, the figure of a woman appeared. She had neither strength of thigh or fist nor willowy beauty. She was like no woman he had ever met. He wondered if she was entirely human. Bones were plaited in her filthy hair and knotted around her waist, and she wore a badly skinned hair over her head in the manner of a hood. She was wild and dirty and elemental, made of the earth, completely at one with the greenwood. A kiss for some water. Niall was under the spell of this place, and anything seemed possible. He took a deep breath, took the stinking form in his arms, closed his eyes, and pressed his lips to hers. She stepped back then, taking his hands, and he opened his eyes. Standing there was an ordinary young woman. Dark curling hair and twinkling green eyes. And yet, she was not ordinary at all. She stood tall and straight and confident in this magical clearing. Strong as oak, graceful as ash, deathless as the yew tree. Next to her, Niall noticed a small wooden harp propped against the well. She talked straight, but her voice sang. Niall, I give you all of myself. That is the sovereignty of all the land of Ireland. You will be High King of a royal and proud line. The water of this well and the love of this place will flow through you and all of your bloodline. And maybe, you might get me as well, if I feel like it. And so, in that great greenwood of Tara, at midsummer, the kingship was secured, and Niall, whom they later called Niall of the Nine Hostages, made his most important alliance of all. He married the land itself, and so found the heart of all.